I think, like you rightly said, just by virtue of being a place where all of us collect and we have a common problem, we are actually, in working in unity, we're doing anything that we expect a union to do for us. Because the strength of the union is each one of us. It's not one person talking on behalf of the whole. If each of us gets equipped with understanding the business of voiceover, which is now the thrust, the kind of focus that we're giving, and everyone then limits the room to be taken advantage of.
Hi, and welcome to the Everything Voiceovers podcast. I'm T-Code, an African voiceover talent from Nigeria, and this is my podcast where I take on voiceover topics from an African perspective. In this episode, my guest is Jennifer Kanari, a veteran Kenyan voiceover artist and founder of the Voice Actors League of Kenya, also known as VALC. We talk about a VO journey, VALC, and the African nominations at the Voice Arts Awards. Sit back and enjoy this episode.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of the Everything Voiceovers podcast, African Perspective, and it's episode 20 of the podcast. Nice to be here again. I have to first of all apologize. Last week I didn't drop an episode due to a few reasons, but then we're back. And don't worry, whatever you thought you missed last week, I'm going to be adding it to this week because last week I already recorded an episode. And yeah, we'll be talking about that. And I have a guest with me today who will be talking about it together. And we have a lot to talk about from a perspective of how voiceover has been in our country. Yeah, so today my guest is not going to be a Nigerian. It's someone that I respect so much in the continent that does voiceover based on track record or history. She's been into the voiceover space since 2001. That's like a long time ago, right? So we have someone who you may want to call a legend in the business with me on the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, today I have one of the most respected voiceover artists from Kenya. She's also a voice coach and the founder of the Voice Actors League of Kenya, also known as VALC, Jennifer Kanari. Hello, Jennifer.
Yay.
It's nice to have you.
Thank you, Tolu. What a nice introduction. Asante. Thank you. It's good to be here.
I mean, yeah, nice to have you too. It's impressive to know that you've been doing voiceovers since 2001. I don't know how you've managed to keep going. I mean, since then to this time around, and you're still very, very present. You're still very active. Let's start from there. Really, have you managed to remain relevant over the years?
Well, I have to start by saying, so a lot of that has been growth. 2001 is when I put my foot into it, literally bumped into voiceover, just because I loved telling stories. And I think that's what has kept the fire alive. Voiceover was just another avenue of telling stories. And so my journey was very local, very Kenya centered for a large part of that journey. And so 2001, pretty much to 2012, 13, after my children got roped into it. So that also kept me excited because now young people, my children were in it. Other children who saw my children in it came. And so I was doing a lot of casting and training and building that talent, and became actually well known for children. People still come to me, hey, do you have children? I don't do that so actively anymore. I don't know what the Nigerian school system is like, but the Kenyan school system snuffs out creativity. So the children are not available anymore. They're in school.
Yeah.
But so generally I became pretty well known because of my time and my interest and my growth from being just a character voice, because I love acting, to being a more announcer type voice of authority, voicing a lot of banks, insurance companies, and Safaricom was the big one that put me on the map, my moment of glory. And so that's really what's done it. And then a whole new world of voiceover opened up to me with the online space. So reignited
Yeah.
all those creative juices, and it's that has just kept expanding. Then COVID happened, and another explosion happened with voiceover,
Mm,
and along the way,
mm,
the Voice Actors League began, which has also picked up traction. So in the last 3 years, just the influx of new talent and me speaking into
mm.
their lives. It kind of, I don't know if you've ever seen a baby look at a bean pod. It's like, oh my goodness, that's right. Look at all these baby beans inside this. So when they come at voiceover with their wow, how do we do this? It keeps, I relive it again, and it
Uh,
helps, keeps me relevant and happy.
that's beautiful. That's beautiful. 21 years doing
Yeah.
voiceover, and you grew from a local talent to a global talent thanks to the international, and not just that, the online space. And
Mm.
now you are the progenitor of what we know as VARC today.
Yeah.
Let's talk about VARC. Why did you found the Voice Actors League of Kenya?
Yeah. Yeah. So I didn't start it alone. In my days as a casting agent, we were constantly being frustrated by the terms and conditions we found on the ground for our talent and for ourselves. I was also talent. And so we decided to just stop complaining so much and start to put structures in place. And
Mm,
because by that time I was focusing more on voice than I was on TV, because I used to do both, um, I was able to speak into the creation of a voice actors rate card. And the Voice Actors League of Kenya is the name we found as Voice Talent to now start creating a place where voice talent could learn what we OGs had to learn, hard knocks, and have a
mm,
place where we could actually show them the rate card, teach them how to use the rate card in their negotiations. And so it with the demand it's just grown because the frustration we were feeling was clearly being
mm,
felt everywhere by many other talent. And then we
mm,
started doing workshops to help put that into place, have because a lot of talent, as you know, Tolu, you come into this just for the joy of voiceover and you don't think business,
business, yeah. Yeah.
and so the whole aspect of growing your skill. What do you need to grow your skill? Acting. So we do an acting workshop and invite actors who we had identified um, had that teaching skill, audio equipment, um, the mindset, auditions,
Mm,
creativity. So before COVID, we would meet on Sundays once a month. It was lovely face to
mm,
face. But post COVID, now we do it online. And because I had retired, let me say, so I was free.
mm,
I'd made a decision not to be in a 9 to 5 job. I wanted my
mm,
freedom back, and I had found that
mm,
voiceover was actually paying me enough to do that. So I became the hands and feet of the Voice Actors League. And so my efforts
mm,
and my ability to pour into it and be available to hear what people needed and kind of feed into that um, has put me at the position where I am in the Voice Actors League. I have help now. For a long time, it was a solo kind of effort, but we were few. Now I have some help. We're like 200 members paid up and double that on the WhatsApp group. So we're growing nicely. And now, of course, Nigerians have joined us. So it's the flavor is just amazing. So we're
yeah.
international, and I don't know if that answers your question. So it's very much a resource,
Mm.
education, networking platform. Education is
Great.
key. Yeah. Mm.
Well, I can also attest to the effectiveness of Valk. You guys, Valk has been so effective that, like you mentioned, Nigerians like myself and a few others are on the platform, and I see what happens on a weekly, and I can say, you've done a whole lot of work to ensure that education continues and people have things to learn. People ask questions on the platform and there are
Mm.
practical answers and solutions provided by professionals. Just something I'd like to understand and have a bit of clarity to. I understand that Valk came as a result of necessity, but then the approach to solving the problems and challenges that existed at the time did not necessarily go via the creation of what people know as unions. But then I think Valk for me is a coming together of people with a common ideology in the voiceover space, uh,
Yeah.
um, through the necessity of what voiceover talents in Kenya were facing at the time, the challenges, and you created this organization, if I would call it. So
Yeah.
how is Val different from a union? Because I have observed that it's not something you really you consider to be, you don't consider Valk to be a union. And what's your perspective towards unionism and the position the Valk holds? Because I know that there are a few Kenyans that believe that the problems can be solved if we come together and unite and form a union and get
Yeah.
our will out there. So what's your take on this areas?
Yeah. I think, like you say, the the thought out there is that unions are the answer, especially in a climate like Kenya, where creatives are not treated very well. They're not considered as crucial a parts of the production as they are. And because now we're sharing that frustration, it's clear it's been there for a long time and it's common to pretty much everybody. And being able to speak as a large voice would force in some way the corporate world to pay attention and treat us better. So I don't know how it is in Nigeria, but I have not seen unions work very well in Africa. I think the ideal that we hope for, especially as creatives, voice actors and actors, because they kind of speak together. A lot of our voice acting community also double up as actors and actresses. So, and they receive the same treatment there, if not worse. And so, SAG-AFTRA, the American model, is what people I think
Yeah,
are hoping for or would like to get into. Now that SAG-AFTRA has been there for a long time and is a you know a whole organization paid for and with its teeth in there and it's earned itself traction and time. Um, the African experience of unions, especially the Kenyan ones, they just get fat and get a name, and I don't think that people really benefit at the end of the day because the level of corruption it poisons the leadership of unions. Now, the other thing is numbers. We need to be a huge number to really command any sort of, I don't know, consequence or pressure. You know what I mean? To make those
yeah,
people listen to us. So I think, like you rightly said, just by virtue of being a place where all of us collect and we have a common problem, we are actually in working in unity. We're doing anything that we expect a union to do for us because the strength of the union is each one of us. It's not one person talking on behalf of the whole. So the areas we've identified, the areas that we kind of contribute to dig those holes that we find ourselves in. We don't go into the job talking contracts, talking rates, talking timeframes, and requiring it in written form, looking through your contract, canceling things that you don't agree with, showing your client that you're actually in charge of this. You're as conversant with this part of the conversation as you are with the voiceover performance that they've contracted you for. If each of us gets equipped with understanding the business of voiceover, which is now the thrust, the kind of focus that we're giving, and everyone then limits the room to be taken advantage of and understands, like, one of the concerns is pension. What about at the end of my time? I'm not sure what they mean as a freelancer, end of the time, because it's not a union for an employed job. What do I have to show my children? It's a valid point if you're going to make voiceover your sole career. So I come at it from, what have you put everything into voiceover to receiving all the money that you're saying it could give you? And then what do you do with that money? So my idea is get out of where those traps are, where you're constantly paying rent and constantly paying for water, which you may not be getting all the time, constantly paying for energy and power. Set yourself up independently from all that, and then you'll no longer be losing money, as it were, and having to constantly needing the money to pay the system. So I'm like, let's start planting trees. Let's buy. I have a who has a piece of land. Let's think more. Let's think different, so that you have money working for you, for your children, but it's not in the hands of individuals who then serve it out to you in little bits, or whatever you think a pension would give you. I just think some of those ideas are limiting, and if we really want to see our work for us in the end, take advantage of the system, get the money in, and then work as a collective to build it. And we can have those conversations instead of thinking, let's have the union, the committee register. I just think there are more. We're not putting ourselves back in the hands of the system that is causing us grief. So it's a hard concept. I'm not even, have you understood what I'm saying, Tolu? It's like
I actually do understand what you're saying.
yeah,
I practically do, because I also belong to APVA. I also belong to VARC too, and I
yeah,
understand how the systems in these two organizations work. It's not
mm,
union-ish in quotes.
mm,
It's just a
mm,
platform where we're trying to solve problems, and I think that's what is most important,
mm,
regardless of if we say union, association, league, whatever we choose to call it. The the what makes them relevant is the fact that they can solve problems, challenges that we face as
mm,
voice actors. And
correct.
as long as we're solving those problems, we remain relevant. If
Mm,
all it takes to get our problems solved is a
mm,
VALC, for instance, or if it's just an association, for instance, we don't necessarily
mm,
need to go build a system that we call a
yeah,
union, right? So
yeah.
it's quite impressive how far VALC has also come. I think VALC came after COVID. That's about 2020 or 2021, and it's just it's almost 2 years now, right?
Well, it picked up traction then. We've been around since 2012, 2013. But for a long time,
Oh,
it was just the rate card we were putting out there and dealing with one or two problems. So we've been around for a while, but with the numbers coming and word of mouth, we really did show
mm.
up 2021. You're correct.
Impressive,
Mm.
impressive. And for those who are wondering how they can be a part of VALC, is there an information for that?
Yes. So because of the way it's structured, I still try and maintain as much of, hands-on, um, with each person who comes, just more relational. So we do request, if you want to have information, you write us an email so we can begin to engage one-on-one. And anyone is welcome now. So the email
Yeah,
address is voiceactorsleague@gmail.com. Voiceactorsleague
great,
at gmail.com. And once you write us, we'll take you through the steps.
great. Now let's talk about Jennifer Kanari.
Yeah.
Let's talk about
Okay.
let's talk about you. You started voiceovers in 2001, and I don't know what the climate was like then, but you've grown and all of that. What are the lessons you've learned as an individual growing your career in a I don't want to say system, because how do we define a system? I'm imagining
Mm,
2001, there wasn't really a system that worked for voice actors. It was just more like you're just an independent person trying to sort it out, figure it out on your own, right? So
yeah, yeah,
you had to deal with business, you had to deal with becoming a better voice actor, right? And
yeah.
there were few resources. So, but over the years, 21 years, there are many lessons that you've learned. And we
Mm,
can go on and on and on talking about these lessons. But if there are, let's just say about three things that you would say are most important for people to pay attention to from your own personal
mm,
experience in
mm,
navigating the
mm.
industry in Africa or in Kenya,
Okay.
what are
In
those
Kenya, yeah.
very key things that you would advise voice actors to pay attention to?
Only three. Okay, let's see.
You could go more than three. I don't want to box you.
um, well, it's a very different climate now. And of course, when I began, it was really for the love of voiceover. And as much as there wasn't a structure, I mean, the you could see a basic payment structure, if you will. For a radio ad, 10,000 shillings. For a TV ad, 20,000 shillings, and there was not much room beyond that. And so we were pretty comfortable that there was some sort of parameters they were using. And so what is different now, which I find amazing, is take advantage of all the knowledge that is available, including the rate card. Because at that time we weren't talking, it was before the digital age. So
All right.
TV meant
Mm.
it was just showing on TV. Radio, there was no bleeding into social media. So things were much more tangible. You could pretty much know where your voice was going. So controllable, maybe, is the word. So because that is no longer the situation, it's also amazing that the information that has come to manage that kind of broadness that the voiceover world has become is there. So things like APVA and places like APVA, communities like APVA and Voice Actors League of Kenya, I would say that is number one. Plug into those so that you can stay abreast, you can stay relevant, and not get caught off guard because you haven't considered something. Especially those of us who started that far back. We had a workshop with King E yesterday, and he was like, "You people who began long ago, you're stuck in all things used to be done like this." He's right, and they're
Mm.
not done like that anymore. And so, learning to accommodate the newness, staying relevant for the global network, because the opportunities are 100 times more than what I had back then. But then you need your
Mm.
your senses to also be available, open to them all. So one is stay plugged in, and the communities are available now, which we didn't have back then. And then the second thing is the creativity and learning um, to stay authentic, especially for Africans. We we do voiceover, which is very much a foreign, if the way what we're voicing, commercials, TVs, video games, until our content, the African content, catches up, and even that is very much patterned after the Western, stories and stuff. You've got superheroes wearing capes and tights in Africa. It's like, I don't know. I don't know
Yeah.
about that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know what I mean? So, but it's catching up, and we're going more Wakanda strong,
Mm-hmm.
and so stay wide. What's the word I'm looking for? Open to contributing creatively to that. So not limiting yourself to thinking I'm a voice actor recording only what is sent to me, but
Mm.
have room to grow in your understanding of videography, of how big content creation is.
Yeah.
expand your knowledge so that voice actors are actually, it's a big thing. So it actually deserves your time. It becomes more of a career that you enjoy. It gives it more weight to think of
Yeah.
it that way. And that I think is important, that I would like to pass on to the people coming in now, so that it is actually a viable source of income, but you get joy and there's growth in it. So that's the second one.
Mm.
The third one, excuse me, I'm not sure I have a third one. I think those two kind of encompass it after complaining.
It's
But yeah,
it's
maybe
fine.
more African content. Um, and I don't know what
Okay.
that is anymore, Tolu, I must say, because we've
Okay.
become so international. This
Yeah.
generation, I speak English as a first language. So
Yeah.
my culture is very much patterned after the West. So maybe it's
Mm.
just to what's the word? Preserve the history. Use our
Yeah. Be more.
voices to yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I agree with you 100%. I was having a conversation with a friend today, and I remember um, a particular conversation we had on Clubhouse one time around a comic that was written with Africans in mind. The plot was about Africans, a comic book, and they wanted to do voiceovers for the comic book, but the script was written in English, but did not
Mm,
carry the inflections and the expression, the reactions of the typical
mm-hmm,
African. Like
mm,
when you read the script and you're seeing, wow, you're seeing, yes, those are not how typical Africans react, right? So you're, as
yes.
a voice actor, you are limited by the script because you cannot use those colloquial expressions that are
Mm,
indigenous to you. So
mm,
that just affirms what you're saying. We need to restore the genuity of
mm,
the
mm,
African system, the African mindset when we are going
mm.
creative. And
That's
I,
right.
I agree with you, Jennifer. The, there's also a part of the conversation that I like us to go into right now.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, we had for the first time ever nominations in the SOVAS Awards, and I was
Yes,
super excited. For those who don't know what SOVAS is, it's most times referred to as the Oscars of the voiceover industry. The
that's
full
right.
meaning of
That's right.
SOVAS is, yeah, the Society of Voice Arts and Sciences, and
Yeah,
this award has been happening since 2013. It's the
yeah,
ninth edition that is happening this year,
yeah,
and the first chunk of good news started rolling in when about 3 months ago or so, a
yeah,
few Africans were announced
yeah,
as about 2 months ago, I think, announced as jurors, and you were one of them, and that was
yeah,
great
yeah.
to see. And
It
then
was. It was
we,
wonderful. Yeah.
yes, so it's something that I'd just like us to touch on quickly. We had about, when I went to the website and I did my calculations, we had about
Mm,
11 voiceover artists in total that got nominated. We
yeah.
had about four categories that were open to Africans, if I'm not mistaken, and a total of 15 nominations. So if I would break that down quickly, um, we had four categories. The first category is outstanding commercial, TV or
Mm-hmm.
streaming, best African voiceover. The second is
Mm-hmm.
outstanding commercial, radio or streaming, best African
Mm-hmm.
voiceover. The third is
Mm-hmm.
outstanding narration, TV or film,
Mm-hmm.
best African voiceover. And lastly, we had outstanding spoken word, best
Yeah.
African voiceover. So before I go on to read
Yeah.
the list of people that got
Mm-hmm.
nominated in each category, I just want
Yeah.
to engage you. What's your thoughts on this development, the Voice Arts Awards having nomination categories for Africans, and for the first time, we had at least 11 Africans on that
Mm-hmm.
list. What's your
Yeah.
thoughts on this, Jennifer?
Well, the the collaboration, which is another big thing that's beginning, not just amongst us as Africans, but also with the the West and largely Americans, but also in England, yeah, put us in contact with SOVAS, with John Baker and Rudy Gaskins, who created SOVAS. And that we owe largely, I believe, to Voiceover Africa, which Nigeria put on the map. And having them engage Voice of Africa 2021 and them seeing how large a market there is in Africa, showed SOVAS that there is an African market to consider. So by 2022, where they appeared again and spoke and did an amazing job in Voice Over Africa 2022, by that point, and there were people who'd gone ahead and created bridges, real relationships, Cynthia Kimola being one, actually going to America and making sure she would get in touch with the SOVAS community. So there have been things happening under the radar that had SOVAS looking at Africa, Nigeria, Kenya more. So by the time the ninth awards came along, they were ready to introduce us. They had seen the quality, they had interacted with us. I mean, I don't know. This for me is what helped us, feature in them thinking, let's have an African category. And then Ayuma was also instrumental in being in touch and being proactive, at least from East Africa. I'm dropping all these names like you know them. So these are people, members of
I do.
Okay.
That's
Yes.
Ayuma Michelle, Cynthia Kimola.
Yes, Ayuma Michelle. Yes, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
I do.
Yeah. And of course, Emeka's work from Nigeria. And then the fact that the Nigerians have been on social media for so long. So just the Nigerian stamp on creativity. I mean, when Joan Baker began her session at Voice of Africa, she was playing music. I think it was Nigerian. I think so. And so there's something that has been happening that has warmed America to us. And then as a judge, listening to the talent. So what, how SOVAS works, it opens itself to you to put in your entry. And so there's a fee, you pay it. So there are some gates, but once you access that, then, and the quality of your production qualifies, then you join this huge international platform, even America on its own, to be considered on that platform. So it's a huge thing for the voice talent to be mentioned in on the same stage. So there is some investment that whoever decided to enter, they had in mind to show up just to be considered and to be noticed. So that already was a win. And then as a judge, they had the Africans judging the African entries. So it was a very proud moment for me to hear the quality of the work, including our own. And of course, we can be as objective as we need to be. And that's the reason they selected us as jurors. It's very clear that the jury parameters, and the scales and what we're looking for, or what we're using to judge. And so I was very impressed by the quality of work all around. Excellent acting, excellent production, amazing commercials. There's one guy, I would, there was deliberately with SOVAS, they didn't give any names. Unlike APVA, unlike, there was no room. Of course, unless you recognize the voice, but otherwise that was not included, so that it could be as objective as possible. And so, so I did my judging as I felt each one met in the specific category. And that's another thing to be mindful of. I think everyone had the opportunity to place whatever the video or production they felt showcased them best in a specific category. And once, I think she wasn't in the right category, if you know what I mean. She didn't. So things like that was, just things to be mindful of moving forward, you know. But otherwise, yeah, the quality was amazing. The numbers were few, and I think maybe it's because of the cost. I think it was 160 or
Dollars.
116, yes, dollars to actually just enter. So that was a bit
Mm.
was limiting. Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you. I was going to ask about the turnout, what you thought about the turnout, but then obviously, like you said, the numbers were few. And in fact, going through the list of nominees, I realized that we
Yeah.
had about 70% female and maybe
Yes.
about 30 to 20% male. So
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
something that caught my attention. I'll just go ahead to give a shout out to the nominees and
Hmm.
mention where or which categories they were nominated for.
Sure.
Starting with outstanding commercial TV or streaming, best African voiceover, we had Chilulemba. And now Chilulemba, who is an amazing voiceover artist, by the way, got nominated 4 times in
Yeah.
this particular category.
Yeah.
And the last and fifth person, or the last and second person that was nominated in this category is Eniola Elizabeth Keshinro. She's a Nigerian voiceover artist. So
Yeah.
when I saw it, I was like, wow, Chilulemba is not just a legend because we love to call him that, but he actually embodies what it means to be a very professional and top-notch voiceover artist in Africa. So shout out to Chilulemba
Mm.
from South Africa
Shout out to Chilu.
or
Yes.
Zimbabwe. Yeah, and shout out to
Hmm.
Eniola from Nigeria. The next category was outstanding commercial radio or streaming, best African voiceover. We had Leslie Lee Kasumba, who is a
Mm.
voiceover artist and podcaster from Ghana. We also had Eniola Keshinro, which makes it a second nomination. So
That's
while
right.
Chilulemba was the most nominated with 4 categories, Eniola Keshinru was the second most nominated with 2 categories
Mm.
from Nigeria. Then Carol Ofori
Hmm.
also got nominated on that category for radio or streaming best African voiceover commercial. And
Hmm.
she happens to be a radio host, author, MC, and voiceover artist from South Africa.
Hmm.
The next category was Outstanding Narration, TV or Film, Best African Voiceover. And there we had a couple of Kenyans. But first
Yeah.
off, we had Atibo Onen. And even though I don't know Atibo Onen personally, or
Hmm.
I really don't know Atibo Onen, but I am guessing the person is from South Africa because
Mm.
it's the name rings South Africa, female South Africa. So shout out to her.
Hmm.
Anuma Michelle
Yeah, that's right.
also got
Woohoo!
nominated in this
Hmm.
particular category. Shout out to
Yep.
Michelle. Cynthia Kimola as well.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
another Kenyan. And finally, we had Sarah Adiola Johnson, who is a
Hmm.
Nigerian. So
Hmm.
2 Kenyans, 1 Nigerian, and 1 South African in this category for outstanding narration. I
Yeah.
look forward to what comes up winner. And the last category was outstanding spoken word,
Yeah.
best African voiceover. And
Yeah.
there was just two uh oh, I think I missed a particular oh yeah, apologies
Mm.
for the previous category, which is outstanding narration. After Sarah, we also had one more person by the name Oluwafemi Olubade, who
Yeah.
happens to be the second male in the whole list, right? He's
Yes.
from
Yes.
Nigeria, yeah, aka Femi Bakes. That's what people know him as, and is
Mm.
also in that category for best narration, outstanding narration. So 2 Nigerians, 2 Kenyans, and 1 South African made best man or woman win. And for the
Win.
last
Extra.
category, yeah, outstanding spoken word, best African voiceover, we had just 2 female voice actors. One is Stephanie Ubeye. She's also a Nigerian voice actor, storyteller, singer, talent, and a media consultant. And the second person is Blessing Kure, also from Nigeria, a social advocate, award-winning voiceover artist, storyteller,
Mm.
and happy to have the both of them on that list. So, well, that leaves us with 11 voiceover artists, 15 nominations, 4 categories for Africans in the ninth edition of the SOVAS Voice Arts Awards, with Chilulemba having 4 nominations, setting the record for the highest number of nominations by an African in the award, and Eniola Elizabeth Keshinru with 2 nominations in the list. So shout out to everyone that submitted, got nominated, and for those who submitted but probably weren't nominated, I still want to give you a flowers. Shout out to you. It was a big effort, or it was a big big effort to have done that, and I hope that
Yes.
next time you could get a nomination nod. So I think that's just gonna be about it for this episode. Back to you now, Jennifer. You obviously have over 21 years of experience in the industry. You've been a judge multiple times. You were a judge at the APVA Awards. You are a member of the jury here in the SOVAS. You've listened to a lot of voiceover artists over the years. You've also, like I said, you've judged some of their works. You know what a proper voice over should sound like. And also you've been opportune to see where we get it wrong a lot of the times. So I'll just ask you this final set of questions. First thing is, what are the common errors that you think voice actors make when they're, voice acting or doing voiceovers? And secondly, what advice would you give them to be better at the voiceover craft practically?
Right. So common mistakes are not sounding natural. So I think we come into voiceover thinking of it because of for example, the announcer voice, which in Africa, at least in Kenya, has not been a natural voice. It's me speaking, sort of speaking to you about the product or what it is. Whether it's a TV imaging voice or a commercial, there's a sound of the announcer which is not a natural voice, and it's more entertaining. Even now, when I listen to TV or radio, I find that it doesn't do justice to what you're trying to do, which is to sell a product. And so I think that understanding is missing, that a good salesperson does not shout at you about their product. A person who wants to win your attention towards a cause does not shout at you or sound unnatural. So one of the biggest mistakes is sounding unnatural, trying to sound like you think you should sound, rather than internalizing the script and finding a place where it makes sense to you and there's a flow of thoughts that you're now speaking. So one of the things that helped me, I think, to get into it so easily was consuming a lot of the Western commercials. So I used to, in that day, we had DVDs where a movie is recorded with the commercials in between. So you're listening to the American, European, French. I used to watch, movies downloaded from a French channel. And they all had a very intimate kind of conversational, very natural way. So that I found myself going in that direction. So producers would say, how is it you get it? And it's hard to explain it to other people. And the only thing I could say is I've been exposed to what it is you're listening for. These guys have not. They've been exposed to the announcer voice, which is not a way you would speak to anyone naturally. And so that's the pattern they come thinking that's what you need to hear. And so it's been the prevalent sound. It still remains the main sound we hear on our local radio stations and TV stations, but it's changing now, because you'll be surprised when we would teach people sound more natural. When they go for an audition, they'd audition naturally, and the producer would say, wait a minute, that's what we want. That's what we're looking for. They didn't know how to describe what they were looking for until we brought the natural voice. So there are different things people call it, the authentic voice. Who are you? Stop trying to sound like what you think I want you to sound. Find yourself in the script. What is it you're talking about? So more people don't spend enough time, I think, internalizing the script. We're in a hurry to perform. And one of the things that comes alongside that is we read it quickly and we're over it and it's done, as opposed to finding your way into it, the natural pauses that come because you're feeling what's happening, and then a natural ending. So that's a general mistake that I find that I have to keep, like when I'm coaching, I have to, keep slow down, read it again. So that's the main mistake. And internationally, our local style is not winning a lot of jobs. So as people learn to hear what the West is listening for, what I learned by listening to the ads and commercials on the internet and on my DVDs, it's people are learning now, but it's a much slow to get to warm into what they need you to be, So that's mistake number one. That's the main mistake. What was your second question?
Well, what are the things? I think you answered it as well. But the things people should pay attention to become better.
Yeah. Exposure, I think. As long as most of our clients are from the West, and even the pattern of commercial scripts or e-learning that is being written here is following that Western pattern, then it makes sense to realize that as a voice actor, you are, I say you're like an ambassador for your client. So you're the voice of your client who believes and understands and can even answer questions. Ayoma Michelle has a very interesting attitude towards voiceover, which I think is one that would be helpful for most of us, is she takes it very, very seriously. I am partnering with whoever it is that has given me the opportunity to voice their script. So I'm very much invested in this production. So the way you would read the script to understand, yes, the meaning, who you are, and the tone that needs to come out in a natural way, like a conversation. The fact that, like an ambassador, you're representing, literally speaking the words of your client. If that is the kingdom you represent, you're speaking as if you are them. So it sounds like it's so real, and you feel for them, and if you're asked any questions, you have all the knowledge that you need to answer them.
Jennifer Kanari, I want to say a very big thank you for accepting to be on this podcast. It was worth the wait for about several months of trying to have you on, and we finally did this today. So thank you so much. You've been an inspiration to a lot of us. Just want you to know that we love you for what you're doing.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
It's been great.
All right, guys, and that's it. Till next time, I say keep voicing, keep learning, and keep winning. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell someone about it. Follow the podcast on Everything VOs on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode. This podcast is a Coded Voiceovers production.